A Nandroid's Dream, Chapter 10. "Oh hey, a new one!" The unwanted guest gave a cheesy smile, their fake, perky attitude giving Rosie a chill, not unlike what the cold evening air spilling in from outside would have done. Rosie stood in the doorway, her processing brought to a standstill from this unexpected encounter. The guest's gaze dropped to Rosie's outfit. They'd never seen her outside of a Sterling uniform before. Or rather, they'd never seen a Nandroid outside of a Sterling uniform at all. But the shock from the arriving party was short-lived as they took a step towards the doorway, causing Rosie to bring the door closer and move into the house, eliciting an exasperated chuckle from the encroaching vermin. "Oh, sorry. I work with—" "It's much too late for visitors. Goodbye," Rosie interrupted flatly as she pulled herself inside and attempted to close the door, crunching a six-pack the secretary had forced forward. They were trying to keep the door from closing and began pushing themselves against it. "Hey, excuse me, if you just give me a minute." They pushed, trying to gain entry as Rosie stamped her feet onto the smooth floor, trying her best to act as a wedge. She was stronger than a similar-sized human, but she was also very small, and the push of war was quickly lost, her tiptoe-like points offering little resistance against a human battering ram. Rosie bounced into the wall with a loud rattle. Her owner popped around the corner at the sound of the commotion, and the secretary's happy mask returned as they lifted their subpar gifts in a victory pose over the Nandroid. "Hey, thought you could use some company. I brought some cheap drinks, best I could do on short notice." The snake slithered in, completely ignoring Rosie and going straight to Rosie's owner. The outrage of barging into another's home, unannounced. Her owner shot a pleading look to Rosie and gave a quick wave, letting her know it was all right. Her owner was letting this intruder stay? Rosie's anger was now matched with disbelief as the two humans walked to the kitchen. Rosie's mind quickly went to the idea of espionage. A small scratch or ding on the invader's car would no doubt have them rethink unannounced visits like this in the future. But she had to be quick. No telling what nefarious plans this fork-tongued devil was already enacting. She closed the door and ran to the kitchen, preparing for the worst. The two were sitting at the table, her owner in their own spot and their guest in Rosie's chair, in mid-conversation as Rosie bounded around the corner, ready to save her owner from their horrible situation. "They can't make anything better than this? I could have brought you something." The secretary was eyeing Rosie's owner's abandoned meal incredulously. "No, Rosie's a fine cook," her owner replied, though not sounding nearly firm enough for Rosie's liking. "Can't imagine the other was any worse than this. Why'd you trade her out?" Rosie couldn't believe what she was hearing and stood gobsmacked in the doorway. "I didn't trade her out," another soft reply from her owner rather than a strong, purposeful response. The secretary caught sight of Rosie at the entrance of the kitchen and gave another of their cheesy, fake smiles. "We don't need anything, thank you." They leaned closer to Rosie's owner, dropping the fake act and giving them a soft, worried look. "Did something happen to her? Is that what happened earlier today?" "No, yes, but this is the same Nandroid." "Oh, you changed your hair, that's cute. And playing dress-up? Awesome. She must not have recognized me." The secretary's insistence on talking about Rosie, and not to her, was really pushing Rosie to her limit. Their voice was like little barbs attacking her ears. "I know who you are," Rosie spat. "Rosie, can you give us a few minutes?" her owner asked quickly. "What? How could they have said that?" Before Rosie could answer the indignant request, the secretary interjected. "Well, I was thinking we could watch some movies, have some sips, just try and relax, forget about your troubles." They shook the cans, pulling one free from the plastic ring and cracking it open, before doing the same to another for Rosie's owner. "I appreciate this, I really do, but this isn't going to help me right now." The secretary took a long, slow sip, downing a large portion of the beer before stopping and smacking her lips. They looked down to the table for a moment before continuing. "Sometimes you just need a shoulder, you know?" Rosie's owner didn't respond. "No movies, just a drink then?" The secretary held out the other opened beer for Rosie's owner, who took it after a moment. Rosie could count the number of times they'd gone out drinking on one hand. This horrible person had been here mere minutes and already was having such a negative effect on her owner. She wished the fire inside her could leap out and singe this interloper, and she was hoping her carefully chosen words would do so. "Actually, you—" "Rosie, please," her owner snapped. She could hardly believe her audio receptors. Her owner was not only playing nice with this goblin, they were siding with them? Rosie clenched her fists and felt some of the anger begin to spill onto her owner. How could they be so... She dared not think the rest. She stood her ground and shot them both daggers. Her owner stood up and swiftly walked over to the small but looming Nandroid. They firmly placed their hands on her and excused the pair from the kitchen. "What's gotten into you? This is not what we need right now," her owner whispered to her. "I don't like the way they're treating me." Rosie didn't lower her tone, knowing the object of her attack would be nosy enough to be listening. "Keep it down. Picking fights with my coworkers is not going to be a good way to introduce yourself outside of being my maid." "If that's how they act, then I don't really mind what they think," she casually said, again not watching her tone. Her owner began pushing her down the hall towards her room. "Just let us have a bit of time. You live here, they're just visiting. What's there to be jealous about?" She scoffed loudly, but before she could begin to defend herself against this accusation, they reached her room. "Please, just give me half an hour, 2 drinks, and I'll send them on their way." She was still fuming and gave them a long, low stare. After a second of Rosie's accusing glare, her owner sighed and dropped their head. "Do you trust me?" She did. She just wanted that horrible person to go away as soon as possible. Rosie finally relented, realizing that would probably be the best way to expedite their exit. "Yes." Her owner reached around her waist and brought Rosie in for a quick peck on the top of the head, promising they'd talk more after their guest left, before leaving Rosie in her room. She was suddenly very flustered, and glad they toddled off as she took her time to regain her composure. She touched the spot where they had kissed, feeling the warmth they had imparted on her, and her anger diminished. She was the only one who was going to get that, so let the two of them talk privately. What did it matter to her? She sat on her chair and relived those sweet moments with her owner. It was true, they really did care for her that way. A tranquil peace that she hadn't felt in months lay gently with her. What was going to be different from now on? Did she have to worry about how she acted around them? She didn't have to hide her affection now, did she? She could hold their hand, give them soft kisses, be held by them whenever she wanted. Right? Unless something else was going on in the kitchen as she lay in her dreamland. It was only a few minutes later, but suddenly it mattered to her quite a lot what the two of them were privately talking about. Rosie went to her closet, which was the closest point to the kitchen, and put her head inside. Could she just make out their muttering, or was she tricking herself? She pulled herself out and went to the door, silently opening it just a sliver. She could now make out some of the talking, but nothing concrete. She turned the light out in her room and opened the door fully, sliding out along the wall as she crept stealthily to the kitchen, her tiptoes helping keep her silent. She paused just outside of the entryway and could just barely hear the two conversing. She strained to catch every word, a hair's breadth from the light that spilled out into the dark hallway. Because doing this to yourself isn't healthy. Everyone needs support every now and then. The secretary was finishing up a plea, taking another swig from their beer. "I know, and it's not like I don't have that. I was just having a really weird day, that's all." "Your maid isn't support." The sarcasm Rosie heard made her quiver with anger. What she wouldn't give to step into the kitchen and give them a piece of her mind. "She's not just a maid. She lives here and is my friend." Her owner's response was firm. She couldn't help but smile as her negative emotions were beginning to fade. "That's right, tell them." "You know what I mean. You need people, someone to have your back in all this. You don't hang out with us enough after work." The secretary's tone was suddenly different. Understanding they had walked into a touchy topic, they were now changing strategies, choosing to act soft and pleading again. Rosie was worried her owner wouldn't be able to see through this act. "And I can start doing that, but this right now, isn't really what I need. I've got stuff to work through, but it's all under control. And again, sorry for the scare. I'm glad to know you have my back." Rosie heard an empty can hit the table, hard. "Stuff to work through. Your robot?" The secretary was no longer being nice and casual, instead poking directly into what the obvious issue was with their accusatory tone. "Whatever you think is going on." Her owner was getting heated, and the last thing Rosie wanted was to be caught eavesdropping, so she silently made her way back to her room and closed the door. She felt relieved. She really didn't have to worry. Of course her owner was just trying to be polite to their guest. She was finally able to relax, and less than 10 minutes later, the house rattled as the front door was slammed. She reached for the door, but wondered if it would be too nosy for herself to rush in the moment the guest had left. While she debated how long she should wait before going into the kitchen, she heard her owner shuffling down the hall, so threw caution to the wind and swung her door open. "What happened?" she said as she exited to meet her downtrodden owner. They looked so much sadder than she had anticipated, standing backlit from the kitchen in a long, dark hallway. They took a deep breath and let out another long sigh, probably the 100th that day. Things went a little south. Humans often need physical contact when they felt sad. It helped them deal with stress and provided encouragement. But she also genuinely felt bad for them and wanted to help make them feel better. It only took a split second for her to decide her next action. She lunged forward and wrapped her arms around her owner and squeezed, enjoying the hug immensely. She relished the feeling as they laid their hands on her back and reciprocated. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cause trouble." Guilt had begun to creep in. Maybe things would have turned out differently if she had just trusted her owner from the beginning and let them handle the situation. "It's fine, I understand. To them, you're just a robot," so they were a little crass. Really crass, actually. We need to be careful. This isn't something other people are going to understand." She looked up to them, resting her chin on their chest. They looked down to meet her gaze, and the two locked eyes. She wanted to hear them say it. Like us, you know." She didn't respond, finding her owner's little twitches and nervous smile endlessly adorable, being fully content to stare and drink in their sight. Now that it was just the two of them again, she resumed her previous inquiry. "Do you love me?" she whispered into their shirt, her large blue eyes giving their face a soft glow. It felt so different being on the other end and knowing she was causing them to have trouble thinking. She could feel their heartbeat again, mixing with their long, drawn breaths, creating the most beautiful melody she'd ever heard before. It was a wonderful moment that she would never grow tired of while they took their time to form their blasé answer. I think. Not the answer she wanted, but it was more a problem what they're thinking than the way they really felt, as they held her tight, their heart and breathing rate betraying this indifferent attitude of theirs. "What's wrong with being honest?" she pressed again. "Nothing. I just don't know if this is real. Whatever we are, however we behave, we have to be careful and not go around making a scene. People just see another robot when they look at you. I need to convince people I'm not dating my robot." Was it official then? The sentiment was understandable. Going places and doing things was fun, but it had an air of plausible deniability before, when they hadn't been a couple. With their feelings in the open, that was no longer available, and would have been much more difficult to hide from the inquisitive public. And another new issue was now mounting. She was being so insistent on them being honest when she hadn't always been. It was wrong of her to ask so much from them and not give it back to them in full. What was the correct way forward here? Go from hiding her feelings from them to hiding her thoughts and actions? No. If she wanted them to be honest, and they would be, she needed to be honest too. "I have some things I need to tell you." She released her owner and took their hand, leading them back into the light of the kitchen. The table, chairs, and drinks spelled a rushed departure with a little care for etiquette. The cans had begun to wet the table with condensate, and the chairs sat haphazardly, having been shoved back in a fit. Rosie would be lying if she said the sight didn't give her a tinge of pride. This was at least one problem dealt with. Rosie sat her owner in the seat and brought the other chair close, grabbing a washcloth to clean off the drinks and then taking the time to place them on coasters. All her little actions were slow and deliberate, buying as much time as she could. But there wasn't much to occupy more than a handful of seconds, so she took an additional moment to compose herself and then finally began to be honest with her owner. She started from the beginning, telling them about the first dream she had had, how it had frightened and excited her. She told of how much fun she had going to Makina Beach with them, how their actions and words were so confusing to her, what she felt when she finally understood what was happening, trying to handle her emotions while still being productive in the following weeks, and then the bits she was more fearful of. But she had come this far and used the momentum to continue. She kept her gaze averted, staring blankly at the table as she continued, her owner completely silent, taking everything in. She went on to tell them about her visits to their office, her dislike of the secretary, how she had spilled their drink in a fit of rage, how she had stolen their paperwork so she could be seen as helpful and get to see them, how she had been watching them the night she broke the stove, how it had been purposeful. She went on, laying herself bare to her owner's judgment. She reached the end of her tirade and stopped abruptly, having not fully anticipated where to stop in her story. She kept her eyes fixed to the table, perfectly happy to wait for her owner to speak. The moments ticked by, turning into minutes, before her owner finally broke the silence. I didn't realize this was causing you such an issue. Looking back, it's obvious now, and I should have pressed further since I knew something was up. By now, her owner's calm and loving nature should have been apparent to her, but their response still touched her deeply. There was no anger, no blame, just them trying their best to understand her actions. This is why she loved them. A great happiness welled up inside her as she finally chanced to look at her owner, who had also been staring absent-mindedly at nothing in particular. Now it was their turn to release the floodgates. After a few false starts, after they got their thoughts in order. I thought it was me. You're a robot, not a human. You wouldn't have worries like I do. You wouldn't have fears like I do. You wouldn't need to lie about anything. I thought it was just me being weird and reading too much into things, so I didn't press it. I tried not to overthink it. I just saw you looking sad or worried and thought you were just acting that way because you were programmed to. And of course I felt bad. Why is the cute, her heart quivered, little robot looking so demure and sad? Give her a hug. Take her to do fun things. Help cheer her up. We had fun and it felt like the right thing to do, but I just wanted to know if it was actually helping. Then you sprang that kiss on me and it was like, I don't know. I don't know what I was feeling or thinking. It was like everything I had ever known or been told about robots wasn't right. I didn't know if this was supposed to happen or what. I freaked out. I just wanted to get away. I just drove around, trying to think it through. Why did you do that? What was I supposed to do in return? Did I actually like what happened, or was your programming playing a trick on me? Are you really how you are, or is it all just code? I didn't really figure it out, but when I tried to call the house and it was busy, and then I called work and got told some robot had been frantically calling looking for me, I panicked again. I rushed home, saw you on the floor, and realized I didn't really care about the other stuff. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. That helped me make my mind up pretty quick. This was the final turning point for Rosie. She wasn't just a silly robot with her all-knowing owner. They were just two people trying their best to figure things out. Neither knew better than the other, and things weren't magically going to get easy just because they were honest with each other. But it was a start. And at least now they did have each other. She didn't have to worry about what they were thinking or how she was acting. They could finally be together and support each other. She wasn't a robot and they weren't her owner any longer. They could now be two people living together. Rosie leaned in and gave her love another tight embrace, burying her face in their chest, and was met with another soft kiss on the top of her head. Just be honest, she thought to herself. Without you, I'd just be someone's tool. You helped me be more than I ever thought possible. I can't control how I feel about you any more than you can control breathing. You're a part of me, and it's as real to me as everything else. I love you. She squeezed even harder and gave her whispered confession, breaking the secret rule that was so taboo it had never had to have been taught. I love you too, her lover mumbled into her hair, gently tussling it. Having laid everything out in the open and been accepted and still loved, she now thought to the good times, the fun things, all the stuff they had done and would do, how she now had to keep her new promise and try new things, meet new people, all with her love by her side. The pier at Makina Beach, shopping, bowling, ice skating, each one of these moments had helped create her life now, and she was excited to think of what would come next. And Rip! She would have to give her helpful, loud robot friend a call and let them know what had transpired. Maybe not every detail, but that they had been right and everything had worked out. She raised her face to them, and they shared another kiss. This was going to be her life from now on. No more lying, no more fighting, no more worrying. She was proud of who she had become and was excited for what the future held. It was up to her to be good to them and expect good things from them. They could rely on each other fully now, and come what may from the rest of the world, they were together at last. Rosie's dream had come true. Thanks for listening. This all started as a quick funny idea I had and wrote down, which is why in the beginning there were no character names or descriptions. I had never written like this before, and I just wanted to put my cute little idea out there, and it just kept going. I kept seeing fun stuff in my head between this Nandroid and her owner, so I just kept adding chapters. This was Rosie's main story, but it's now come to a close. There's a few more chapters on AO3, just fun extra stuff for you to read if you care. Doing narration's been fun and interesting, and I hope you guys are looking forward to whatever I do next.